Better policy.
My first guest is the Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold. Welcome back to the program. It's almost as if the Democrats have kind of started to abandon this 14th Amendment thing, because any simple reading of Section 5 shows the power does not belong to the president, belongs to the Congress. So at some point, the Senate's going to have to offer something.
Yeah, I mean, they've come up with crazy idea after crazy idea. There was the $1 trillion coin. There was utilizing the 14th Amendment, all of which is just an attempt to bend over backwards to avoid doing the simple, basic thing that most Americans know that we need to do. Insert some fiscal responsibility into the equation. Let's start to make cuts in a sensible fashion to get our budget back on track, which will help our economy, which will reduce inflation, which will improve the quality of life of most Americans. It's not that complicated, yet we've seen all these gimmicky, stupid ideas pop up that even people like Janet Yellen have thrown cold water on. I don't know why they're continuing to talk about them. Let's do simple things. Let's cut the budget and let's move forward.
Yeah, and hanging on to Lawrence Tribe, it doesn't really matter what he says about Section 4. Section 5 is clear. But you would think by now, look, the Republicans, love them or hate them, pass something in the House. Now it's time for the Democrat-led Senate. Before we even start, yes, I get it. McCarthy wants to talk to Biden because he's the head of the Democratic Party and all that. But really, Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell should be putting something together and voting on it in the Senate.
Yeah, the Senate did absolutely nothing. All they did was complain about the Republicans. They complained about the bill that they put forward. And it's not a perfect bill, but it's pretty darn good. And instead, what the Democrats did was sit on their hands. They didn't even introduce a clean debt ceiling bill until May 1, just a few weeks ago. All of the griping, all of this slow motion train wreck that everybody saw coming, they didn't introduce any legislation. And House Democrats, they're just as guilty, even though, of course, they don't have a majority and they really can't move legislation effectively in that chamber. They should have put forth a piece of legislation, even if all it did was increase the debt ceiling figure. Of course, I would have liked to see some spending cuts and some more fiscal responsibility, but they didn't do jack squat. And that's why they've lost so much leverage. And that's why when you saw Speaker McCarthy speak just a moment ago, he was talking about how far the American public in this debate has moved to the right. It's because Republicans have acted. They've done the right thing. And meanwhile, Democrats have done very, very little, if anything.
Yes, we would have all liked more, right? But I think what the Republicans was present a reasonable, non-controversial proposal. Okay, you guys voted for this spending level in 2022, just about 6-8 months ago. We're saying, let's stick to that spending level. And the Democrats are saying no. But you just voted for it. And also, it's also not working. This attack that the Republicans are cutting 22% for veterans' benefits. No, they're not. Any quick reading of their of Limit, Save, Grow shows that they're not cutting Medicare, not cutting Social Security, not cutting Medicaid, and not cutting veteran benefits. So the lies are not working for the Democrats, no matter how much media they control. The bottom line is the Senate has to do the work.
Yeah, they're just implementing scare tactics. It's a little more than that. But you look back, it's not hard for people to remember way, way back in the days of 2022 when we had a functioning government. The sky didn't fall. Nobody was left in the street to starve. Of course, our nation has problems, but going back to those spending levels is not the draconian spending cuts they would have you believe. And we rewind a little bit more back to 2011. We had a similar knockdown, drag-out fight. And guess what? The Obama administration, which of course included Joe Biden, as well as the Senate Majority Leader at the time, Chuck Schumer, as well as Nancy Pelosi, these people came together with Democrats, met with Republicans, and they agreed to put spending caps in place. They agreed to bring a balanced budget amendment vote to the floor of the House and Senate. They didn't do anything drastic, but they had reasonable approaches to fiscal responsibility that I think were worthwhile. In this situation, they've just decided, because we think our position is right, we're going to not even step foot in the room with Republicans to talk out our problems. That's insane. That's exactly what Congress and the president are supposed to do. That's why we send them to Washington, to iron out the differences that we have with our neighbors, that we have from state to state, from city to city in this country. We have differences of opinion. Go to Washington, debate them, figure out a good plan, and let's move forward.
And the simple truth is, in 1974, they passed something called the Budget Control and Empowerment Act. So this Congress can look back and say, look, that COVID money's coming back. We're going to trim some federal agency budgets. We might not give another $100 billion to Ukraine. We're going to have to trim back until we can pay our bills. And then maybe if we can look at tax receipts, maybe we can, spend a little bit more down the road. But right now, we got to pay our own bills. We can't pay everybody else's. I got 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I think what needs to happen here, first of all, we need to increase the debt limit. There's no question about it. We don't want to go down that road because we don't know how catastrophic it would be, but it wouldn't be pretty. And second of all, yes, we're going to get an imperfect package here. I think it's going to come to fruition in a day or two. It's going to include budget caps. It might include permitting reform. It's going to include some steps in the right direction. At the end of the day, I think we ought to take this deal and move on to the next fight. We can always get more, but let's focus on achieving this win, putting it in our back pocket, and moving on again to the next battle we have.
All right, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us.